When tech billionaire Vincent Sterling accidentally calls a wrong number during the worst day of his life, he expects to hang up immediately. Instead, he finds himself talking to 8-year-old Lily Washington, a conversation that will shatter his cold heart and change everything he thought he knew about success. If stories about unexpected human connections and life-changing moments move you, hit that like button now and subscribe for more incredible true stories that will restore your faith in humanity. Vincent Sterling, just hearing that name used to make grown men in boardrooms break into cold sweats. At 45, he commanded a tech empire worth $3.2 billion, lived in a penthouse that cost more than most people's lifetime earnings, and wielded power that could crush companies with a single decision. But here's what nobody knew about Vincent Sterling. He was the loneliest man in America. I'm talking about a man who measured human worth in quarterly profits, who saw employees as expendable resources, who hadn't hugged another human being in over 3 years. His own sister stopped taking his calls. His parents had given up trying to reach the son they once knew. Vincent had built walls so high around his heart that even he couldn't remember what it felt like to genuinely care about another person. The morning this story takes place started like any other day in Vincent's carefully controlled world. He walked into his corner office on the 52nd floor, overlooking a city full of people whose names he'd never know, whose struggles meant nothing to him. His assistant brought him his usual black coffee and the daily reports that would determine the fate of thousands. That's when he saw the numbers that would trigger everything. Quarterly projections were down. The board was getting nervous. Investors were asking uncomfortable questions. For Vincent, the solution was simple, cold, and calculated. Cut costs by cutting people. He pulled up the employee database and started making decisions that would destroy lives with the same emotional detachment most people use to delete old emails. 2,000 employees, 2,000 families, 2,000 people who would wake up tomorrow without jobs, without security, without hope. Vincent approved the mass layoff with 3 clicks of his mouse, then moved on to his next meeting as if he'd just ordered lunch. But the universe, it seems, had other plans for Vincent Sterling that day. By noon, everything started unraveling. The major client his company desperately needed walked away from a $100 million deal. Word of the layoffs leaked to the press before the employees were even notified. His stock price plummeted 30% in 2 hours. Vincent watched his net worth drop by nearly $1 billion while sitting in a boardroom full of executives who suddenly looked at him like he was radioactive. Then his assistant, the one person who'd tolerated his coldness for 5 years, walked into his office, dropped her resignation letter off his desk, and delivered words that cut deeper than any financial loss. "You know what, Mr. Sterling? I used to think you were just tough. Now I realize you're just heartless. I can't work for someone who destroys lives and sleeps peacefully at night." She walked out, leaving Vincent alone with the weight of his choices. That's when it hit him, the crushing realization that he had absolutely no one to call, no friends to confide in, no family who cared enough to listen, no one who would comfort him in what was rapidly becoming the worst day of his life. His chest tightened, his hands started shaking. The panic attack came without warning, stealing in his breath and sending his heart racing like it was trying to escape his body. In that moment of absolute desperation, Vincent Sterling, the man who controlled billions, couldn't even control his own breathing. Gasping for air, he grabbed his phone with trembling fingers, trying to dial his personal doctor. But fear and panic are terrible companions when you need precision most. Vincent's shaking fingers betrayed him. Instead of dialing his doctor's number, he pressed the wrong digits. The phone rang once, twice, and then a voice answered, but it wasn't the voice he expected. "Hello?" The voice was small, sweet, and unmistakably that of a child. Vincent's first instinct was to hang up immediately. He didn't have time for this. He needed help, needed his doctor, needed someone to fix what was happening to his body and his crumbling empire. But something in that innocent greeting made him pause. I need to speak to Dr. Morrison," Vincent managed between labored breaths. "I'm sorry, mister, but you have the wrong number," the little voice replied politely. "There's no doctor here. Are you okay? You sound really sad. Are you okay?" When was the last time anyone had asked Vincent Sterling that question and actually cared about the answer? He found himself still holding the phone, still listening to this child who had no idea she was talking to one of the most powerful men in the country. I'm, Vincent started, then stopped. What was he doing? Why wasn't he hanging up? I'm having a rough day, that's all. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Lily. What's your name? Something about her genuine concern made Vincent abandon his usual arrogance. It's, it's Vince, he lied, not wanting to explain who Vincent Sterling really was. Hi, Vince. I'm having a rough day, too. My grandma Ruth is in the hospital, and I'm all by myself waiting to hear if she's going to be okay. But you know what Grandma always tells me? She says that when we're scared, that's when we need to be extra kind to other people, because you never know who else is hurting. Vincent felt something crack inside his chest, and for the first time, it wasn't panic, it was something else entirely. Here was this child, alone and frightened, and she was comforting him. When had anyone ever put his needs before their own? Tell me about your grandma, he found himself saying. Lily's voice brightened. Oh, she's the best person in the whole world. She takes care of me ever since Mama went to heaven. Grandma works really hard at 2 jobs to pay for our apartment and my school clothes. She cleans offices at night and during the day, too. Well, she used to clean during the day, but she lost that job today. Vincent's blood went cold. She lost her job today? Uh-huh. She came home crying, which made me cry because Grandma never cries. She said some big company decided they didn't need cleaning people anymore. Just like that, they told everyone not to come back. Grandma said she doesn't know how we're going to pay for groceries now. The room started spinning around Vincent, his cost-cutting measure, his signature on the layoff orders. This child's grandmother, Ruth, was one of the 2,000 people he had destroyed with 3 clicks of his mouse. What? What company was it? He whispered. I don't know the name. Something with Sterling in it. Grandma just said it was in one of those tall, shiny buildings downtown. But don't worry about us, Vince. Grandma says God always makes beautiful things from broken pieces. We'll figure it out. Vincent Sterling, the man who had spent decades building an empire on the backs of people like Ruth, sat in his 52nd floor office and felt his world completely shatter. He was talking to the granddaughter of a woman whose life he had casually destroyed that very morning, and she was comforting him. The silence on Vincent's end of the phone stretched so long that Lily asked, Vince, are you still there? I'm here, he whispered, his voice barely audible. The weight of what he'd done, what he'd been doing his entire career, crashed down on him like a tsunami. But before he could process his guilt, Lily's phone started ringing in the background. Oh, that's the hospital calling on Grandma's phone. Hold on, Vince. Vincent heard Lily answer the other line, heard her voice change from hopeful to terrified in seconds. What? What do you mean surgery? Is she going to die? The 8-year-old's suits pierced through Vincent's phone and straight into what was left of his soul. Here was a child facing the possibility of losing the only family she had left. The woman who'd already lost her job because of his greed, and Lily was completely alone. Lily, what did they say? Vincent found himself asking, surprising himself with how much he actually cared about the answer. They said Grandma needs emergency surgery right now, Lily cried. Something about her heart. But Vince, I don't have anyone to drive me to the hospital. I'm only 8. I don't know what to do. In that moment, Vincent Sterling made a decision that would have shocked everyone who knew him. What hospital, Lily? St. Mary's on 5th Street, but why? I'm coming to get you right now. But you don't even know me. You're just a stranger who dialed wrong. Vincent stood up from his desk, grabbing his keys with hands that were no longer shaking from panic, but from determination. No, Lily, I think maybe I dialed exactly right. As Vincent raced through the city in his Tesla, he did something he hadn't done in 20 years. He called his estranged sister, Sarah. She answered on the 4th ring, shock evident in her voice. Vincent, is everything okay? You never call unless... Sarah, I need to tell you something. I've been wrong about everything, about family, about what matters, about the man I became. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all the years I chose money over people, over you, over everyone who tried to love me. His sister's silence told him she was crying. There's this little girl, Vincent continued, pulling into the hospital parking lot. And she just taught me something our parents had tried to teach us when we were kids, that the only thing that really matters is taking care of each other. Vincent found Lily in the hospital lobby, a tiny figure with pigtails, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit, looking lost in a world too big and scary for an 8-year-old to navigate alone. When she saw him, this tall man in an expensive suit, she ran straight into his arms like she'd known him her entire life. "You came," she whispered against his chest. "You really came. I promised, didn't I?" Vincent knelt down to her level, looking into eyes that held more wisdom and kindness than he'd seen in decades of boardroom meetings. "Lily, I need to tell you something. My real name isn't Vince. It's Vincent Sterling." He waited for her to be angry, to pull away, to hate him for what he'd done to her grandmother. Instead, Lily looked at him with those innocent eyes and said, "I don't care what your name is. You're here when I needed someone most. That's all that matters." And in that moment, Vincent Sterling's heart, frozen for 45 years, finally began to thaw. What happened next would have made headlines if anyone had believed it was possible. Vincent Sterling, the man who'd fired 2,000 people that morning, spent the next 4 hours holding an 8-year-old girl's hand in a hospital waiting room, calling in favors he'd never used for personal reasons. He got the best cardiac surgeon in the state on the phone. He arranged for Ruth to be moved to the VIP wing. He made sure every medical bill was covered, every specialist consulted, every comfort provided. And when the surgeon finally emerged with good news, Ruth's surgery was successful, Vincent found himself crying tears of relief for a woman he had never met but whose life he'd almost destroyed. But that was just the beginning of Vincent's transformation. The next morning, he called an emergency board meeting. His executives filed in expecting damage control strategies and cost-cutting measures. Instead, they watched their CEO announce the immediate reinstatement of every laid-off employee with full back pay and apologies. When they objected to the financial implications, Vincent looked them straight in the eye and said, "Fire me if you want, but I won't build wealth on human suffering anymore." He personally called every single person who'd lost their job. 2,000 phone calls, 2,000 apologies. Some hung up on him, others cried. Many didn't believe it was really him. But Vincent made every call because he'd learned something from an 8-year-old that his Harvard MBA had never taught him, that behind every number on a spreadsheet was a real person with real dreams and real struggles. Ruth was promoted to facilities manager when she recovered, with a salary that would ensure Lily never had to worry about grocery money again. Vincent established an education fund that would take her all the way through medical school, because he remembered she wanted to be a doctor to help people like her grandmother. But the most beautiful change wasn't in Vincent's bank account or his company policies. It was in his phone records. Every Sunday at 3 o'clock, Vincent would call Lily. They'd talk about her week at school, her drawings, her dreams. She'd update him on Ruth's health and share the wisdom an 8-year-old learns from a grandmother who'd seen decades of struggle, and triumph. 6 months after that wrong number changed everything, Vincent received a package at his office. Inside was a crayon drawing that showed 2 stick figures talking on phones with a big red heart floating between them. At the bottom, in Lily's careful handwriting, were the words, "How God used a wrong number to fix 2 broken hearts." Vincent had that drawing framed and hung it behind his desk, where it remained as a daily reminder of the day he learned the difference between being rich and being wealthy. His employees noticed the change immediately. Their CEO, who'd once passed them in hallways without acknowledgement, now knew their names, asked about their families, celebrated their children's achievements. His sister Sarah visited him every month now. His parents tentatively began calling again. Vincent discovered something miraculous. The more love he gave away, the more he seemed to have. I often think about Vincent Sterling's story when I'm having my own difficult days. See, he spent 45 years climbing to the top of the world, only to discover he was completely alone up there. It took one wrong number and one little girl's wisdom to teach him that the view is always better when you lift others up with you. Sometimes the universe puts exactly the right person in your path at exactly the moment you need them most. For Vincent, that person was 8 years old, wore pigtails, and answered a phone call that was meant for someone else entirely. If Vincent Sterling's story moved you like it moved me, if it reminded you that one moment of genuine human connection can change everything, then I need you to do something right now. Share this story. Share it with someone who's forgotten that kindness still exists in this world. Share it with someone who needs to remember that we're all just one conversation away from finding exactly what our hearts have been searching for. Hit that subscribe button soon if you believe in stories that prove miracles happen in the most ordinary moments. Ring the notification bell because I promise you there are more incredible true stories waiting to restore your faith in humanity. And here's my question for you. What wrong number in your life turned out to be exactly right? Leave your story in the comments below. Because sometimes the best connections happen when we least expect them.